Hi everyone, so there have been a number of videos on the topic of women and tabletop gaming, specifically how to get more women involved in the hobby. A few of the videos that got me thinking about this topic and inspired me to share my opinion on it are Gentleman Gamer's video, Juice's video, and JDR-D30's video. I'll put links to all these videos down below. It's been posed as a complicated question, but it really has an easy answer. Invite individuals to game. Gender identity shouldn't matter. You should be treating everyone like an individual person, not like a stereotype of that person's race, gender, sexual orientation, etc. My gender is one of the least interesting things about me. There are about 3.5 billion other people who identify as women. There are a lot fewer individuals who grew up in a house that had more science fiction and fantasy books than their local library. There are a lot fewer people who competed in model rocketry, and there are a lot fewer people who built their first theatrical flat at the age of 8, just to give you a few examples. There's a lot more to me than my gender, but gender is an easy thing to identify and label. So it's easy, but very problematic to lump people into groups. It's easier if you can look at a person and think you know something about them based on a physical appearance. A lot of people do express themselves through their physical appearance, but that isn't all there is to that person. So it's easier to think you know somebody based on a physical outward appearance than to actually take the time and get to know that person. But taking the time and getting to know that person, you're going to find out so much more about them that makes them interesting. In the words of Albus Dumbledore, dark times lie ahead of us, and there will be a time when we have to choose between what is easy and what is right. Well, I think that time is now. Personally, I dislike approaching any topic with giant generalizations, saying all men do this, all women do that. Because not all men do this and not all women do that. It makes it harder for individuals who fall outside of the socially constructed gender stereotypes, because they look at it and go, well, I don't do this thing over here, so obviously I'm doing something wrong because my gender says I should be doing this and not be interested in this thing over here. Think of it as when you were a kid. A lot of us geeks and gamers and nerds, however you want to identify, didn't fit into the socially constructed ideas of what we should be interested in. We may not have been interested in the sports everybody else was interested in, or wore the right clothing, or listened to the right music, or watched the right movies. I think that's something that's appealed to this hobby, is that it has been a place where people who don't fit in can feel like we fit in. So while I was watching JDR-D30's video, I found myself agreeing with a lot of his points, but I also took issue with how some of the ideas were presented. And I don't think that this is how he may have meant it, but it came across this way. A lot of his suggestions for how to bring women to the table are good suggestions for how to bring any new player to the table. Let them focus on the character and the kind of experience they want to have, rather than focusing on all of the numbers and rules, because oftentimes as a new player, it's very easy to get bogged down by numbers and rules and forget why this is supposed to be fun. But here's the thing. There are a lot of individuals who really enjoy the numbers and the rules. So if you approach them thinking, oh, you're a woman, you're not going to enjoy this, and take that experience away from them, they're actually going to enjoy it less. Just because of their gender does not necessarily define what they're going to be interested in. So in my opinion, with any new player, you should ask that player, what is the best way that you can help introduce them to the hobby? They may want to come up with a character concept and let you, the more experienced player, go through the rule book and help them with the character creation and put together that character based on the concept and then tweak it with them. Or they might be the type of person that wants to sit down with the rule book and read the entire thing before ever making a character choice. If that's the case, the most helpful thing you can do is to let them borrow your rule book if they don't already have one, or are hesitant to go out and drop the money on something when they're not sure it's something they want to get fully invested in. Or they might fall somewhere in the middle. The world is not black and white. There's a full spectrum, just like there is a full spectrum of people and personalities. To give you a personal anecdote, I got very frustrated one time while playing a board game with another player who kept trying to suggest I take different strategies than the ones I wanted to take. He looked at it expecting that I hadn't played the game before, when I had actually played it several times. I knew the rules, I was familiar with the different strategies, and I knew the strategy he was suggesting was a valid strategy, but I wanted to go with this strategy over here, which was also a valid strategy. In this instant, my gender wasn't an issue, but I've worked in a primarily male-dominated field, and I know how frustrating it is when my gender becomes the issue. I've had times where people have assumed I don't know how to do something or I need help because I'm a woman, when I had years and years of experience, in some cases more experiences than the other men who were working on the same project. So don't use gender as an assumption of what somebody's interested in, as well as how they want to approach it or how much they know about it. Ask them, have a conversation. Don't use gender as an assumption that you need to step in and be the white knight. If you are the white knight with everyone, regardless of gender or whatever, then yeah, go ahead. The world needs a few good knights. It really comes down to just treat every player the same. That's how you can get women at the table, by just treating them like everybody else. That's what we want. Now, there was another topic discussed in a lot of these videos that was women publicly showing their interest. And I have a few thoughts on that. Unfortunately, right now, it's not a pleasant atmosphere to be a female geek. Gamergate, responses to Anita Sarkeesian's videos. I've even had one instant on the YouTube RPG Brigade group that was uncomfortable because I was getting insulted based on my gender. There are times where it feels dangerous to be a woman out in public. Gentleman Gamer talked a lot about this in his video and his repulsion to this recent trend, as well as some suggestions on how we can change this. I agree with just about everything that he said in his video. The way to deal with abuse and harassment is to speak up. Nothing can be done if we all stay quiet. To be honest, I've wanted to do a video response on this topic for a while, and one of the things that was holding me back was fear of what's the reaction going to be, which is ridiculous that I even had that thought. I should feel free to share my opinion and not feel like I'm going to get harassed. If you don't agree, that's fine. We can have a conversation, we can have a discussion, but it doesn't need to turn into threats and harassment. That's not the mature thing to do. So to all my fellow gamers, it's on you as well to speak up. Don't be the silent observer who doesn't act when you see abusive behavior or language. Let that other person, that friend even, know that that's not acceptable behavior. Take the time and listen and explain why saying all women or all men comes across as sexist. You might not mean it, but if you don't know that that's how your words are being interpreted, you don't have a chance to correct yourself, to change your language. Sometimes it's not even something that that person is doing intentionally. They just have never been called out on the behavior or never had anybody explain why what they're saying comes across as hurtful. I really do think that we can change the culture of the hobby. We can help continue to push it to be much more open and inclusive and welcoming to everyone. Now, another side of the women expressing their interest in the hobby publicly comes down to merchandise. It wasn't until fairly recently that a lot of companies started having t-shirts and stuff like that for women. I walk into my local comic book store and the majority of the t-shirts there are unisex shirts, which often aren't comfortable or flattering on a lot of female figures. Then if I don't have access to a local gaming store or comic book shop, places like Target, there's an entire display of men's geeky t-shirts that I would love to have that Captain America t-shirt, but the women's section only has one or two, and sometimes those are even a bit sexist, unfortunately. Now, as I said, this is starting to change, and we can help encourage that change by supporting manufacturers and companies that make products that appeal to a wide variety of gender as well as are inclusive in their products. We can support systems that have a diverse and inclusive artwork in the core books. We can support systems that allow people to play any gender, any race, any sexual orientation they want, and doesn't limit what our characters can be. That's one of the things I love about role-playing. I get to step into somebody else's shoes and see the world from a different perspective and put myself in somebody else's shoes. It took me 26 years to get into gaming. And I had an older brother who gamed. I know I had friends in high school and college who gamed, but I never got invited to join. And I think that's a big thing. I never got invited to join until Ryan invited me to join the game. And especially because you can't really do tabletop RPG by yourself. You need other people, and it's a little harder to just jump into it not knowing how to do it, especially if you don't have somebody who knows how to GM. That's a really difficult thing. So it's a lot easier to invite people to try it out. And especially if you give them an open invitation. That's how I started. I got the invitation to come and play a session, and if I wanted to join, they would write me into the campaign permanently. And about 20 minutes into that first session, I knew I was going to stick around. If more people have that opportunity, more people are going to be interested in gaming. And the more people who are interested in gaming, the more perspectives you'll get and the more interesting your campaigns are going to be, because somebody's going to bring a different set of life experiences to the game, and you might get a really cool new storyline because of that. So if you want more women at your gaming table, it's really easy. Just ask them. But also keep in mind, don't invite them just because you want a woman at the table. Invite them because you want that person at the table, because you want to be inclusive and share your enthusiasm for the hobby and watch the hobby grow. The more perspectives we have, the more fun it's going to be. So this video was pretty serious. I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are, what your personal experiences are. Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.